Welcome, everybody. We have with us today a special podcast because, as usual, you have the People's Padre here with us, Caleb and Adam.
That's right.
Hello.
That's right.
What's up?
I'm looking forward to today.
And then we got Nancy
Put our hair down.
with us.
Hi,
Yeah, I know.
guys.
Do more of a, we'll see what happens. Because every time we're
Put your
like,
hair
yeah,
down.
we're going to go chill today.
know,
It turns
it's
into
It's like intense.
And then we got Jermaine. We got Jermaine here. And then we got Andy, who he's one of the newer guys on our team. He's 17 years old, and he does all of our Instagram reels and all of our TikTok reels.
Yes.
Our TikToks. Our
Yeah.
TikTok reels. So shout out to Andy.
Shorts.
He's our youngest guy on the team right now,
Yep.
17. We
I know,
practice
he's
what
doing
we
great.
preach, and he's killing it.
He's doing
Killing
great.
it.
Love your clips, dude. Your
Next
clips have
level.
already, gotten
Yeah.
a lot of traction.
Appreciate it. Thank
And then today, one of my good friends had one request, and one request only for his birthday. Zack Stewart in the house with us.
Go!
Yes. Is on the
Welcome,
podcast.
Zack.
And so, just so those that may or may not be bored, if you're watching us on YouTube, obviously you can tell. But for those, we have a lot of people that listen to us on audio podcast. My friend Zach has cerebral palsy, and so he has this incredible iPad that he can interact with. So if anything sounds like the robot, sound, that's going to be Zach talking on with us today. And he said for his birthday, what he wanted to do was hang on the podcast. And then we put him on the table with us. So
Let's go.
what we're going to talk about today, obviously Zach is going to jump in at any point. And then, so even because sometimes it takes him a little bit to type it, I think it's incredible. You do it with your eyes, Zach, and to me, you do it so fast. And so if Zach types, he may be referencing something we said a couple minutes ago, but nevertheless, that's kind of what we'll engage with. And me and Caleb have been looking forward to have Zach on with
I
us
know.
today.
I can't wait to
See
where
what he
the
says.
conversation takes us.
One thing we'll say
Yeah.
right off the back is we have been looking for a wife for Zach. So
Yes, comment, please.
if there's anybody
Reach
who's
out.
interested to slide into his DMs or anything, I'm
Yes.
sure the team.
He said yes.
Hey Zach, what are we looking for? Any particular type of ethnicity that you're particularly interested in?
Yes, Mexico.
Okay, a Mexican
There we
woman.
have it. He wants a Latina.
Yes.
All right.
let's
Any
go.
Latinas? Yeah. Are you
Wow.
interested? Is it pure Mexican or can she be of any of
Can
the
she
Latin
be-
countries?
That's a
Yes,
yes.
that's a yes.
That's a yes. Okay.
Guatemalan,
We got
Nicaraguan,
a problem.
Colombian, Cuban,
Hondureña, Venezuela.
Puerto Rico,
Broad
all of
tip.
the above.
Broad tip.
He said all of the above.
Yes.
But we got
So
to
he's
stay
a
with the
catch. He loves God. He's a great worshiper.
Great smile.
Great
Incredible
smile. Attractive
artist.
man. Very attractive, handsome man.
and an incredible artist. I
Yes,
have your art
yes.
pieces at my house.
wow.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know. What kind of art?
Oh my gosh, his art! I'll show you
My
later.
parents have it at their condo, their San Diego condo as well. They have a couple pieces.
They
Is
do.
it painting? Is it drawing?
Yeah, he does painting. Yeah,
Oh,
well, actually,
wow.
now he does animation, graphic design. Kind of does a bunch of the things. But
Wow, that's very impressive.
his original, your first love was painting, though, right? Right, Zach? Before you got into all the digital stuff. But now he does. Oh no, my
No.
bad. Oh, what was the first love? It wasn't painting. Was it digital?
It was probably.
Oh, I always
Oh,
thought.
he's gonna let us know.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I could remember, me and Zach have been friends for probably, I don't know, at this point, over 15 years. We've been at the church for forever, ever since we were kids. Now, you just had your...
Yeah, he's well, you're 1 year older than me. I'm 35, you're 36. He just turned 36.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were pretty much the
I
same
didn't know
age.
computer stuff was your first. I thought you got into painting
Wow.
first. Oh, nice.
Have you ever done Bob Ross? I'm thinking about getting into Bob Ross tutorials. Me and Gabe are thinking about getting into Bob Ross tutorials, learning from Bob Ross, the master.
Yeah.
Have you ever done Bob Ross? Like, have you ever painted along with Bob Ross? Not your kind of art? No.
No,
He does
you
like
know.
he does like he'll do like a lot of basketball, like, so he's done some like Kobe stuff over the years.
Wow.
He's done a lot of Christian stuff. So he gave me
Yeah.
over 10 years ago one of like Jesus carrying a cross. Really dope stuff. My parents have at their house some animals that Zach has painted. Over the years, we've done some cool fundraisers where
Wow.
Zach has
Oh, yeah.
sold some of his artwork when we were building one of our buildings at one point. So really cool stuff.
That's
yeah, his stuff's
awesome.
good.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So if any of you, anybody want to commission a piece,
Reach out to him.
yeah, we got.
We'll
Yeah.
put his Instagram.
And his Instagram has some of the art pieces too.
Handle
So you'll be able
Yeah.
to see. And then we had a funny situation happen at his at his birthday this week. Was that is that a person that helps you out, Zach? The girl that freaked out when
Yeah.
Caleb walked in the house? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he
Wait, wait, you're gonna have to tell the story.
Oh well, I know. She's gonna listen to this.
she is. I know she
So I,
is.
so I
So
should
funny.
apologize. Then this
Yeah.
is my chance to apologize, right?
Well, she was in here at
Yeah,
first. I
yeah.
thought she was going to be in here.
Oh, she was here.
But when she
Okay.
comes and
Well,
helps Zach
okay.
again, because she asked for your autograph and you shrugged it and laughed it off because
I
you thought she was joking. So what I did
Yeah.
today, because I thought she would
So
be
she
here
really-
because she
Oh, I
helps.
should've told
She
you to
helps.
stay.
She no, it's okay. When she comes back, I'll do it. But
Okay.
when I thought maybe she'd be here because she helps Zach and drives him and stuff like that. It helps him throughout his day. And so I brought a Sharpie and a Beyond the Letter shirt so you could give your autograph actually
Oh,
because
that's legit.
Wow.
she was heartbroken.
I'm honored.
Heartbroken because we go to this birthday party at Zach's house. Caleb was there first,
Yeah.
so I was coming later because
Okay.
I was coming from one of Phil's kids' birthday parties. So I pull up. She kind of freaks out, but she's a little calm,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're talking, and she just she's very excited that she was meeting me, which to us is still pretty new. I get that. I've gotten some of that stuff for preaching over years, but it tends to be a little different about the
For a
podcast now.
Yeah.
So she gets really excited, and then she goes, "I'm trying to be calm because the guy earlier, I freaked him out, and he left." And I said, "What?"
I
guy?"
thought she was joking. I didn't. I've never had a person treat me like
You've
a celebrity.
You've
so
never had a fan.
It was
before.
just
It
weird.
was your first
Hey,
instance.
I literally thought she was exaggerating. I was like, and then when I left, she goes, "Can I have your autograph?" And I just laughed and left because I thought she was joking. I left her hanging.
So when I'm there, she's about to leave, and she's still very excited to meet me. So I make the suggestion, out of just like because she was very excited.
Yeah.
I said, would you like to take a picture? And so she freaked out. She said, "Yeah, oh my gosh!" She got excited, and she goes, "I just didn't know what I could ask for because the last guy wouldn't give me an autograph." And I said, "What last guy?" I said, "My brother." She goes, "That's your brother?" I was like, "Yeah, that's my brother." And then she freaked
man.
out. We took the photo, and so then I told Caleb, she genuinely wanted your autograph.
Oh, she's gonna be
Yeah.
stoked.
And so I brought. So she'll have it by the time this episode. I brought a Sharpie and I brought a Beyond the Letter
that's
shirt so that
sweet.
Caleb could sign it for her
Okay,
and give
cool.
it to her.
Cool. All
It's
right.
not a joke.
Yeah,
So
no,
next time, you gotta carry a Sharpie around.
You thought he
I
was?
thought he just Adam and Cable.
Yeah, oh, you think that we're just Adam and Caleb? Is that what you mean? Yeah, me too, Zach. We
Oh
grew
yeah,
up
we're,
together.
Yeah.
we're like
We're
brothers.
boys.
Yeah,
we
we're
grew
like
up together.
brothers. Yeah, Zach's watched every show, right? Like he's our biggest, most faithful listener. Him and his
mom.
and his
Family.
What was her? I'm sorry, I forget her name. His caregiver.
Is Deirdre?
Oh, he'll be. Was that? Is that
Was
who
it
you met?
Deirdre?
Is it Deirdre?
Is it Deirdre? Yeah, so Deirdre, they're faithful listeners and
Yeah.
as well, pretty much every episode, right? Yeah.
We're very thankful for
Yeah.
that. It's quite amazing to meet people who enjoy the podcast as much as they do,
Yeah.
and everyone of different ages and ranges. One guy I think was joking. I shook one of Zach's friends. And he said, "I'm never washing this hand again." So at one point, I thought they were maybe messing with me at
Yikes.
one point.
We hope you do.
After I shook it, he looked at it. He said, "I'll never watch this head again."
Oh God,
I
you
thought,
can't
I'm
tell
pretty
nowadays.
sure you guys are all messing
You can't
with
tell
me.
who's trolling and who's genuine
trolling?
nowadays.
Yeah,
In the age of
that's
social
very
media,
true.
Right.
the lines are blurred.
I was like, "Oh man, I don't want to feed in this because if I walk in the trap, I say, oh man, thank you." He's like, "Dude, I'm just kidding."
just kidding.
dummy." I'm like,
Right.
"Oh, shoot."
It's gonna be like, oh, awkward. Awkward. Oh, that's
All right,
cool.
I did have a clip first that I wanted to share, given that Zach's on, and then I have some other clips I want to share. I sent some in this week because actually there's a lot of news going on this week.
Yeah.
One is particularly happening with Target. I don't know if
yeah.
everybody heard. So I have
Yeah,
a
man.
video that I think we ought to talk about that. But I have one first that pertains to stuff over the years me and Zach have talked about, and that he's messaged me about, and subtle ways we've had conversations about this, and given him his circumstance in life, and there's a famous woman in ministry named Joni Eareckson Tada.
Yeah.
She's in a wheelchair, and she always gives. She's kind of like Nick Vujicic, and kind of given their circumstance, really encourage people and minister to people. And she has a recent clip that kind of made waves in TikTok. And I thought, I actually saw it this week, and I was like, oh, Zach's going to be on with us. What a great opportunity. I think we should play it. So to give you an idea, if you're listening on podcast, Joni Eareckson Tada has a disability, and she's in a wheelchair. So this is an old clip that she has that just recently reemerged and is kind of going waves on TikTok. So to give you an idea, she's in a wheelchair when she says what it is that she's going to say. So Gabe, why don't you go ahead and play this video for us real quick?
I hope that I can have my wheelchair in heaven with me. I would walk up to my Savior and I would say, Lord Jesus, do you see that wheelchair there? Before you send it to hell, I want to tell you something. I would say, Lord Jesus, I want to tell you something you already know, but give me the pleasure of praising you by saying this, because the weaker I was in that thing, the harder I leaned on you. And the harder I leaned on you, the stronger I discovered you to be. I'm so grateful.
Wow.
That's tough. What you got, Zach?
She is right about lean on God, because I had to lean on God many times throughout my life, and it is easier to lean on God than another person, because God never failed to care. That's why I don't understand how a person who isn't a Christ follower, they can able to make it through life.
Jeez.
Wow.
I'm about to throw my headset off, Zach.
Right.
Just let you talk for the rest of the
Right.
That almost broke me. I've been priding myself on being numb, but that almost broke me. Building up walls around my heart.
Cry for the first time on the show.
Serenity
I think
now.
we need to hear that
serenity
again.
now.
Play it one more time, Zach.
I think we need to hear it one
I
more
can't.
time.
I need Caleb to hear this.
I can't break.
He might say something
I will
positive
not
about
break.
a woman after this.
I will not break. Adam broke me the last time a few months ago, and I never forgave him for it. No.
What was that one? Was it a long episode?
Yeah, no,
ago?
no, it was our staff meeting.
Oh,
You
in
asked that
private.
question. That made me break. And I was like, no.
Oh, only about 10 people were there. I made Caleb cry in a staff meeting at the team meeting at the top of the year. Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't there.
He wept. He wept like Jesus wept.
You plucked the right heartstrings with me. Yeah.
Oh man.
You're right,
That's
Zach.
great.
I mean, it was that perspective from her talking about her relationship with the Lord, and particularly her conversation, obviously her metaphysical, hypothetical conversation
Yeah.
with God in heaven about her hey, before this wheelchair goes to hell. She's always been one that has good humor. I think her and like Nick Vujicic, and for me more so for Zach, because over the years, I feel like Zach, there was like you and I, we've talked a lot over the years. I feel like maybe 6 or 7 years ago, there was kind of, and you could say yes or no, but from what I'm aware of, there was kind of this, there was a shift for you. It was maybe when we were doing Sunday nights with Fresh Start or sometime around them. I felt like there was a shift for you as a young man and as a person where, you know, I know there's been seasons in your life that have ebbed and flowed in terms of whether you were happy or sad, but kind of about 6 or 7 years ago during that Fresh Start season, I found that you were coming Sunday nights with this kind of new worship came out of you. From what I saw, it was like you get now we know you in church. Anyone from Abundant knows you. You go to the front, you lift up your chair, you worship God, you sing, you praise louder than 99% of us.
Yeah.
You worship better than 99% of us. But that wasn't always the case. I feel like there about 6-7 years ago, there was a shift where you just were like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to worship God even in my circumstance. And a couple of times you've joined me on stage and you've shared what God was doing through you in terms of your decisiveness to know that, yeah, you're trusting God that you're going to walk one day, and you're trusting God that you're going to be whole, but you also, yeah, you have something. Go ahead and play it.
the worship for me, in worship give me a strength to overcome life's challenges, that why I am worship like I do, and it is remind us God is with us.
Yep.
That's great.
And so is that true about, is it true what I'm saying though, about 6 or 7 years ago, you kind of had more of a decisiveness, kind of a shift? No.
No.
Has it always been that way?
Because I remember Pastor Mark when we were attending youth. Remember those days, Zach? Youth ministry.
Yes.
You were still up there and worshiping.
I
same as you
remember
are.
those
Yes.
days.
Same as you are
So
now.
you think it's
Yeah.
been pretty consistent your whole life, Zach? That
Yes.
worship? Okay. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just when I started noticing it. Is what it is.
And it's true. I feel like when
Yes.
we go through, whether, obviously it's different for everybody with the struggles that we encounter, but when we go through them, it does, you have two choices. You either decide, okay, God, I'm going to lean in closer to you, or God, I'm going to go just do my thing. And I feel like I've come across several of those times where it's like, oh man, so I can make a choice right now to, go turn up and do what I want to do, or like, God, I surrender to you. Like, I just can't, and it does. Those painful
Yes.
times that I've gone through, whether like I've shared before, like skin issues, it does like lead you to lean in close to him because you can't control certain situations, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, man. Like I don't. It's so admirable because we just, especially people who don't know Christ, they'll use a situation like yours, and just the last thing that they may want to do is to praise and worship God, and thank God, and be grateful. And I mean, they probably struggle more with blaming God and hating God and being angry with God. And to be honest, I've struggled with those emotions in my own experience. And I was telling him this at his birthday party. I often thought about Zach actually, getting through my toughest times. And when I would think about him, it usually came when I was the most angry at God. Like I was just cursing him and cursing at him and just angry with God. And then people like Zach would come to my mind, and I think, man, like, who I don't got it as bad as Zach. As bad as my situation is, it's not as bad as Zach's. And that guy goes up every Sunday. First of all, he's a faithful attender of church every Sunday. And he goes up on stage and he worships God.
Hosts his own small group at his house too.
Wow, he's a neighborhood group leader?
Yes.
I'm learning a lot.
Not him and Caesar, a couple other guys, but attends church.
I mean, it just
goes to the front for worship.
It's an inspiration. He's a real inspiration. And one of the big lessons, one of the things that I did to get through my situation is to think about people who have it worse than you. And I know that's kind of cliche. You hear that a lot, but it really does help. It really does help when you feel like you're going through the worst experience, to think about people who may be going through worse situations than yourself, to really give you strength to endure. Yeah, so
and how they're
I have mad at God in the past.
You've been mad at God in the past.
So like, how did you overcome that? Or do you still struggle with that? And how do you overcome that? How do you get through that anger?
While Zach's typing those thoughts, unless he has something that was written already. One time I had a story similar to what you're saying. There was a woman who was, I've shared it a couple times, but I've rarely had moments that were like really prophetic or anything like that, and nor do I ever say that it's a prophetic moment. But one time I was watching a game like 8-9 years ago, and we were watching a Laker game. It was just like final season, just like this. And I had 2 waitresses. It was me and a buddy. We were talking to the waitresses throughout the night because we were there for the whole game. And one girl was like kind of open. They asked, "What do you do?" So, I'm a youth pastor at the time. And so one girl was adamantly like, "I hate God. I'm so mad at God. I'll never follow God. I'll never go to a church. I'll never this. I'll never that." And when I ask her why, she says, because her brother is the greatest guy you'll ever meet, but he's in a wheelchair, and I'm so angry, and why would God let that? He's such a good guy. He's this, that, he's the other. And she was mad, used every reason. But me, I'm mad. My whole family's mad. And we talked to her and ministered to her about it. Everything you can say, right? You know, there's sin, and we give glory to God no matter what. And there's tough times. did everything we could ministry-wise. She's just kind of still rejecting it. I said, basically for her, I said, you could be mad at God all you want, but, one day you're going to see him face to face. One day you're going to be able to reconcile these emotions with him, but what you don't want to reconcile emotions with him is as one who rejected him. Because if you reject him here on earth, then why would you even want him in heaven?
Yeah.
So if the closest you could be to him on earth is receiving his son, why would you go to heaven and say, but he'll accept me? Right now, I'm pissed at God. Right now, I don't want anything to do with God. Right now, I reject God. Right now, I reject Jesus. But if I go to heaven, I think he'll be merciful to me. What do you mean? You want nothing to do with him on earth? Why would, we know many statements of Christ in terms of you don't acknowledge me on earth, I'll not acknowledge you in heaven and all that stuff. So I share that stuff with her. And then I say, I just basically, sometimes we as preachers, you want someone to get the reality of how death is near. Because a lot of times we think you live forever.
We're invincible,
right?
right? So
Yeah.
I tell her, hey, the last thing you want one day is, because we were in Corona, and Corona has a bunch of those little mountains and hills. The last thing you want to do one day is be driving through all of these mountains and hills one day, a tire blow out, and your car flip. I said, stuff happens like that all the time. We go on a freeway. I said, your tire blows out, your car flips, and you're not here with us anymore. Right. And all you had for you was mad because someone in your life didn't have life the way that you expected them to have, or you think they deserve to have. Yeah. And so I said, don't use circumstances as an excuse to reject God. So that's all I said. I left.
Yeah.
I come back 2 weeks later. The other girl, who was the other one helping with us, she walks past us for 20 minutes, doesn't acknowledge us. So finally I go, excuse me, could we get some help? And she's like, you're real. And I'm like, yeah, of course I'm real. She's like, you're real people. I thought I was freaking out. I thought I was hallucinating again. And I go, again, what are you talking about? She goes, that night a couple weeks ago you're with us? Well, that waitress, when she went home, her tire blew and she rolled off one of the hills on her way home. Really? And her car, she pulls out her phone and shows us a picture of the girl's car that's crumbled. And she goes, I've been going to church for the past 2 weeks since that happened, since you guys said that. And she goes, we thought you guys were angels warning us.
I would believe that. I would think that too.
So then finally I ask her, I say, so is she dead? And she goes, no, she didn't have a scratch. Not a scratch. And then she goes, but we've been going to church together now since last week that we talked. Wow. And I was like, I was tripped out because I never, nothing
that is
like
crazy.
That ever happens.
Let's clip that. Andy, let's clip that.
I'm serious. Nothing like that has ever happened to me, probably ever will happen to me again. And so it's not a falsehood. I'm not stretching truth. That is exactly what happened. We were bugging out. And to me, it was the Lord trying to get her attention, and she's not a scratch. And I saw the car at the bottom of the ravine, looked like a soda can.
What?
And she did not have it. The girl pulled her phone out, showed it to us on the phone, the picture on her Instagram of all things. She pulled it up on the girl's Instagram and showed it to us. It was like 9 years ago. It was crazy. Wow. But it goes to say of the lengths, God will go to, not just that happening, but just in general, the signs God will show us.
Right.
What do you have, Zach?
I asked God why, and he told me that helps hurting people.
Yeah.
That's good. The question regarding how to overcome the anger towards God.
Yeah.
It helps hurting people. Yeah, man.
Yeah, so you can
the
encourage
comfort
others.
with which we've been comforted, we can comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort that we receive from God, right? That's that Corinthians verse, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's for a ministry, greater ministry, right? Yeah.
Zach's been that guy through and through too, encouraging people. We recently had one of our guest speakers just looking at Zach worship during, he wept. One of our guest speakers just cried.
And always smiling. He's so friendly.
He was inspired by by Zach's
and there's something about
passion,
empathy. Like you can't really have empathy unless you go through the same struggle somebody else goes through. Like people who I haven't lost a parent, so I can't relate with your wife who's lost a dad.
Yeah.
I could never minister to her because I've never lost a parent. I've never lost a child. So I can never, somebody who
Fully
lost a
relate,
child, I
yeah.
can never minister to them who lost a child. So there's something about like empathy, going through something, and whatever you went through, that's probably going to be the ministry that God calls you to.
Yeah.
You know, whatever
Yeah.
whatever you've gone through, or you know, God will use it for a greater purpose to help people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. I think that's one of the things that drives me and Ashley nuts, because on the outside looking in, for us, all intents and purposes, her and I did everything wrong going into marriage, you know, and it's like God always leads us to couples, and I'm always like, dude, I was addicted, you know, I did not honor my body, I did not honor women, I did not appreciate women. My wife, you know, didn't honor relationships. She was lived with guys. Like, all intents and purposes, you think, if there's anyone that deserves to have the worst of the worst circumstance in this relationship and marriage, it should be us, right? And then we see God faithful in our relationship. That goes, oh wow, we can actually use our failures or use our circumstance that sometimes we receive, and even for her being able to minister to people who have lost family members now to a greater sense. Like, we could all, you know, we're all trained in the Bible, so we could all give the, you know, biblical semantics of the appropriate way. We could all study Job together. We could all, you know, read the Gospels together and pray.
You could pray for people, but
to hear from someone who has walked that road, like richly Pastor Kenny has, when we recently did a Q&A night, how Pastor Kenny talked about losing his daughter. It's like, I'll do counseling with someone and we'll talk about losing a child. I've done that. I've done funerals for children, and I've walked the family through. But there's another grace, a new level of richness in the
God glad.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's a different level of richness where you say, this is what I've gone through. This is where we've seen God faithful. In this tough time, it's to have your testimony, you know, and then have healing in it, because that's something you need too,
Right.
or you become like Job, and it's everybody becomes like all your friends are pity parties at that point. If everybody's just, you know, kicking rocks at you and stuff like that too, it's having that experience of, and Zach was just saying, is seeing the goodness of God and seeing Him worthy to worship. And Joni Eareckson taught her to understand, my wheelchair is going to go to hell, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to minister to the people that I ministered to on earth in my circumstance.
Right.
You know,
Well, I'll tell you this: if I didn't have a church, if I didn't have a community of believers whose faith supplemented my weak faith, I would be the most pessimistic, nihilistic, pity party
Cynical.
person the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I would not come back to. You know, so there is a profound power and grace in other believers lifting you up in your time of weakness, and you know, just kind of giving you a sense of purpose that, like, just kind of like okay, you know, we've cried with you, but hey, let's put some goals in your life now.
Yeah.
You know, let's set some goals. Let's what do you think about doing this? What do you think about doing that? And really helping the person come out of that.
Yeah. And if they walked
that
with
ditch,
you,
that valley,
they can
you
remind
know?
you how far you've come, you know.
Yeah.
I think Zach has something to say.
In the lockdown, I lost my grandmother, and it was tough because I wasn't able to go to church. And years passed in hard time. I went to the church to help me to heal. But when the lockdown was happening to us, we weren't able to go to church. That's why I think lost my grandmother was tough, and the church is very important to us because the church can be able to heal the broken hearts.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I think that's one of the things I respected about my dad the most about reopening the church as early as we did, is everyone was up to their own opinion to stay home or do whatever they wanted. But
Right.
there were situations, you know, you don't know the burden of a pastor and the calls they're getting. And so for us, when you're getting call after call after call, when my father-in-law passes during COVID quarantine, you know, a month into it, and the hospital is saying we can't even go, you know, to the hospital. Like, so when we say, man, forget that, we're going to have a funeral, and we're not going to limit. I think at that time it was 8 people in a building at a time, or 6. for a funeral. It had to be a certain size. And we're like, that's not even our family is 6 people. And, you know, my mother-in-law and, you know, nieces, nephews and all that. And it was just like, no, we can't do that. There are people who need their church.
Right.
There are people who need community while being responsible, because at that time it was still very, you know, fresh and new. So we didn't know what COVID was going to be or do, but at that time still being very fresh. But to Zach's point of how vital the church is, you don't know what people were going through on how bad they needed the church. You may have not needed the church as an individual. Right. The church may mean nothing to you, but to many people, church, and it's not the building. It's not a building they're referring to. It's the place of gathering. You know, we could choose anywhere that it be that.
Yeah.
It just happens to be what we call church, but it's that gathering place of believers where Zach can freely worship it with his community, where we can freely celebrate what God is doing. We can freely pray together for what's happening, that you don't feel like it's all on you.
Right.
You know, I'll often have people who come to church who are atheists, who are just like, I know my father died. I don't know where to go. I don't know. Can you pray? And I'm like, do you know who Jesus is? And they're like, no. You know, it's just, but it's that idea of like, I'm going through it. I don't know what to do. I don't even know that I know who God is, but I'll go to the nearest place that I think he's supposed to be at. Mm-hmm. And that's how people start a lot of times their journey of faith. It's not being able to answer those questions to life or have an answer that usually kickstart their journey with God, because the moment the human mind cannot logically reconcile with circumstance, it immediately starts turning to, well, then what else is there? Right. That's why if I throw an atheist out of an airplane, they're going to start praying to God real fast. You know, if they don't have like you didn't believe in him your whole life, but at that moment you're like, I'm believing that I could land this thing, because the moment your mind can't reconcile with that circumstance around you, all of a sudden you start believing in God real quick.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Right. Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Did you have something, Zach? I saw something written. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, along those lines, while he's doing that, just wanted to, along the COVID lines, that's one of the things I'm very proud of our church, because there was another church that actually kind of criticized it. I won't name names, but kind of criticized us when we were opening. And a lot of people in America, a lot of Christian churches in America who resisted the mandates credit this church to being the first church to stand up, but it was actually us. We were literally the first church in America, and especially in California, to resist the COVID lockdowns, and we opened despite the governor's orders, and that's one thing I'm really proud of our church for doing. And we probably would have got more backlash if the Sunday that we opened wasn't the week of George Floyd, so that got all the attention, right? So it was, and the fact that like we're like a minority church, so it's hard for the media to hate on a minority church opening up and going against the governor's orders, you know. Instead, this other church got kind of a lot of credit for being the first church to resist, but it was actually us.
They did that about 5 months after us, is what it was.
Yeah,
they did it in September.
They did it after us.
We opened in May.
And didn't that pastor? I don't want to name names, but didn't that pastor like criticize us?
Name the names.
Well, it's almost essential. We won't name, but it's almost essential because you and I, we're essential. I mean, you and I have ties back to that church. So what happens is we have ex-members of our church who go to that church, and so they were pushing up to the leadership to say, hey, Abundant Living is opening, because they know who we are. And we got criticized that we weren't obeying Romans, about obeying the rulers and authorities that have been placed over you. And so the pastor released a statement, and one other pastor that's very known in Los Angeles released a statement secondhand again. Now, here's the thing. I'll say this: if I ever, which we know, if I ever see any of those pastors, I'll give them a big hug. They're my heroes. I mean, so I want anyone listening, like, there's no animosity, there's nothing.
no
like,
and our reward is
like,
in heaven. We don't need the applause of man.
Right,
It's just
and no one needs to say,
I say it because I'm
you
proud
guys
of
were
our
the first.
church. Like
Yeah.
that's the point of what I'm saying.
And
really.
I think it's very clear.
Yeah.
I just want to, as I'm giving clarity, I don't want anyone to think we're either.
I don't want to be like that
mad
those
at them
other
or whatever,
podcasts
you know.
that just hate on churches. So yeah, I don't want to be that.
I love
Yeah.
these pastors.
Yeah.
One church is a predominantly African American church. One church is a pretty diverse church, but it's got white leadership. But on both regards, they both came in different angles. One came at our irresponsibility of people's health, which was the predominantly African American church who said that, and the pastor said those churches in the Inland Empire, which is us. So went on so it was definitely speaking about us. And then the other pastor, which was again those churches in our area, it was definitely speaking of us. And I think what was funny during that season was we were kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't season, because we were opening, which to people's eyes was a really conservative Republican move to open.
Right.
And so there were people on one side of the coin that were like, abundant living's way too conservative for me. You know, you guys are opening before anyone else. That's a really Republican thing to do. So we were kind of getting shot on that side. And then at the same time, now at the time, since Black Lives Matter movement has really gone down hill, unfortunately. The leaderships have mismanaged money and all that stuff. But right during George Floyd thing, BLM was not really the established organization that we know it right now to be. It was still a something that was a saying from Trayvon Martin's death. So if you said Black Lives Matter, it didn't represent a nonprofit. It represented more of a belief, a mantra. So it just so happened after George Floyd, I have a lot of young black men in our church who are going down to LA, and they're showing me videos, because if you guys remember, those riots are happening, cars were being burnt. They were and what they were telling, when I'm going, hey bro, like, you're a believer, you're a Christian, what are you doing at those things? And they go, man, I just think this isn't.
Let me say this too, because it showed the hypocrisy of our rulers, because they were allowing all of these marches and stuff during this COVID lockdown. Because like how we did, you can continue, but that's separate from like the point I'm making, which is that George Floyd happened literally the week that we opened, and that was kind of like a camouflage where we would have got a lot more negative publicity, being like literally the only church in America, or the first church in California, a very Democrat blue state, going against their governor's mandates to shut down churches. We were the first one. Yeah. But anyway, you could continue your connection.
What I'm
with,
saying is what you're
BLM.
saying. I'm making it full circle to say that we were doing things that were on, you could call both sides of the aisle of people's optics. Yeah. So even when I saw a lot of young black men doing those things, I had asked myself, with my son being black himself from his mom, if I saw Matthias going down and being a part of a car being burnt down and rocks being thrown at police, like, what would I do in response? Would I just lock him in a room? Would I do? No, as his father, I would facilitate something much more peaceful and appropriate that teaches him the values of America, which is you can right to protest. That's one of our core values in our space, but do it in a way that has responsibility tied to it. So I say that to say is, you do that, and so we did that. We did kind of a march, and so we kind of got some people on that side of things. Oh, yeah. And they thought it was a BLM thing. It wasn't. It wasn't a BLM thing. It was something that we were actually trying to respond to our young black men in our church who were going out to these protests, and they weren't doing irresponsible stuff, but they were near it and around it, and so that didn't make me proud as a pastor. And so it did. It gave them something to be a part of. I say that to say, because at that time, news stations were actually in the middle. A lot of people don't know is they were in the middle of writing stories on us. So we gave interviews and stuff like that. So we gave quotes and we gave interviews, and they called us before they were going to release it. And they said, hey, given everything you guys are doing on these, on that, the peaceful march that you did, and the fact that your leadership is minority, we're not going to release these stories because they actually don't go with what we're trying to do.
That makes
so
sense.
even the Sunday we opened, they were supposed to be here saying that we were defying the governor and all that stuff like that. And we had 10 news stations confirmed. And there was three churches doing it that said we were going to all open together, and 2 were predominantly white leaders, and then there was us who aren't white leadership, and so they were going to do them on those churches. Those churches actually decided to wait another month to open. So all in all, when we opened, we really were the only ones doing it.
Yeah.
And they said they couldn't because what you said, but they were writing stories on us. And then a couple weeks later, we do the march. So they said, oh, but we're still going to finish a story out on you guys, because they were actually trying to show how religious fanatics are going against the governor. But they said they couldn't. They literally called us, and a couple were honest and said,
we have such great
we couldn't because,
relationship with police too.
Yeah, we have fantastic, and they do all their graduation at our church. But they literally said, we can't do it anymore because your guys' leadership is too diverse.
Makes sense.
Oh, wow.
And so it wouldn't help their story, of what they were trying to do, because they were trying to pivot whites against everybody else, and it's not
Why
going to
some
work
people seem like worship Republican or Democratic Party nowadays than God.
Yeah,
You're
that's
right,
true, Zach.
More people worship Republican, Democrat Party than God. Yeah, or they use God as a veil of the party that they're in, and that's exactly. And for us, season, that's really what it was. It was people that were trying to pivot us, and so I think it's great going to what you're saying of leadership and our dad who made that tough decision and took a lot of the heat for it. Ultimately, God was faithful through it, because our church has become more healthier than ever by not sticking to a side. A lot of churches are growing nowadays by making very clear
A lot
sides,
of that,
which
yeah,
is
and a lot
okay.
of
They
that
can do
wasn't,
that. They can do
and a
whatever
lot
they
of
want,
because Dad is very naturopathic, and he's very discerning with government and everything that's going on. And he doesn't take sides, because our church is probably 50-50, 50 Republican, 50 Democrat. And, I think his biggest justification for opening was the hypocrisy of our of our governor and our rulers, that a liquor store could be open, but a house of worship, a house of healing, like going back to what Zach was saying, a house of healing, a house of worship couldn't be open.
Yeah.
That these
or our leaders can book out restaurants and have parties.
Yeah, and
yeah.
even the George Floyd marches and protests, not one media spoke against that. I mean, they were all up in arms a week before that, talking about masks and social distancing, 6 feet apart, and then a week later with George Floyd, they were praising these protests, a lot of which
Millions.
were setting cities on fire and being very destructive. And there was no criticism whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it was just, open season. And all of a sudden it was like, what happened to COVID? Where did COVID go?
Right.
Did it disappear? So I think a lot of it was just
The best
discerning
were
the
when
hypocrisy.
because there were a lot of Christian
Yeah.
marches happening, so they were doing all the math of like, if this Christian march happens, this will be a super spreader. All while in the background, like another racial march was happening, and they would never even talk about how that was a super spreader.
Yeah.
It's just, and I think that's the biggest thing. It's just if it's the pot calling the kettle black. I don't care that the media does a hit piece on Christianity. They're going to do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's do a hit piece on whatever else, even the ones that work for your belief system. If it's irresponsible, if you claim something's irresponsible, make it irresponsible. Close it down.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Across
I
the
think
board.
I think such a great argument for, like, once again, the church
Yes.
that gets all the credit for being the church that resisted the governor of California opening up, that the criticism from him 3 months before, when we were the first to open, was what was it, submitting to your governing authorities or something
Romans.
like that.
Yeah.
That verse, but here's such a great argument against that is our governing authority is the Constitution. And nowhere in the Constitution does it allow for any reason the closure of churches in the freedom of religion, which is the very basis of our country, under no circumstance. So our basis of authority as a nation is the Constitution. It's not our governors. It's not the president. So insofar as our Congress or our governors or goes against the Constitution, then we have the right as churches and as Christians to go against our government. Now if we were in China where it was just a dictatorship and it was just the dictator decrees, so let it be written, so let it be done. Well, then the rules are different for how do you obey
and
God.
they're still doing it underground and they're dying.
Yeah.
For it.
Yeah,
on
the
behalf,
rules are
you know?
different.
Yeah.
You do got to figure out ways to submit to that. If in China they have strict lockdowns, their governing authority is not the Constitution. It's
Right,
different.
it's a different-
Yeah, it's
in
by
obeying
decree
that.
of the dictator. So you kind of have to obey. But in America, we resisted that, and you know what? We were the first church to resist that because we had people like Zack's family in mind. We had people like Zack in mind. We had people who needed the church for their mental health, for their spiritual health.
Yeah.
Who needed that community. That's who we did it for. We did it out of love, and I'm very proud of our church for that. And going back to
One, we have
bringing
a
it full
large
circle
building.
to
We have
what
a
Zack
large
said.
building with filters and all that stuff like that. So it's different than, I think being in a small office space or whatever that at the time, it was different. Like we had, a crazy amount of circulation and stuff like that. So in a large building that it was never being packed out. So,
that's not saying we didn't take precautions and we
Right.
didn't
We
have
did all those
rules in the
things.
office
Right.
and masks and
we did
we
spread,
did a lot of that
social
stuff.
distancing and all that.
We did a lot of that stuff. I just want to give credit where credit is due because I think it's one of the great achievements of this ministry because here's the thing, like anybody could follow Christ when there's no cost. Like this was a time in our church's history where there could have been a real cost.
Right.
Well, I could show you the emails.
To follow God, like to follow God the way we thought God wanted us to follow Him, to resist tyranny, to resist mandates against gathering together as saints, and we resisted that, and there
They
could have
didn't
been a
learn
greater
history
cost.
of America.
What?
They didn't learn
Yep.
history.
Yeah.
History of America.
That's
Yeah,
true.
right. Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's what we fought
Founded
for.
on-
That's what
yeah.
we were founded on. We fought for
And that
these
is
freedoms.
that is the great American issue too. That's kind of that's our niche. Americans, we're the Wild West, baby. Like we like to do things on our own way. Like that's Boston Tea Party. That's taxation is theft. That's you go to other places, Australia, England, Europe, like they're very they're a lot of times their approach in government stuff is still very, it can have emotions to it, but it's still very docile. It's still very it's what's very Asian as well, like what's good for the everyone and the herd.
Right.
And there's benefits to that of thinking about that. But America, by principle, we're so Wild West. Like we do want to rebel. It's instinctual culturally for us that and that's where it goes into our personal lives. That's where it goes into church. That's where it goes into. So like a lot of those American church issues are because people desire that's why you got people who are leaving church, start their own churches. That stuff usually only to the degree that we know it happens in America. Because that's a very American mindset. This oh, you don't like your church, go to a new one. Oh, you don't like your pastor, start your own church. Like that's a very American view of things. Not thinking, well, first, am I called? Am I qualified?
Yeah.
Has the Lord anointed me to do this? It's like, oh no, I'm not a fan of this. I'm not this. That's very American. We do that with everything. We do that. We do that
A la
with
carte, like create your own. Yeah.
we create our own faith spectrum. We create our own thing. Like that really is American, but it works in benefit when it's a situation like ours where the government is telling you to do something in hypocrisy. And so then you say, no, we're not doing that. No, we're not going to do that. That's very American, in that byproduct. And there are a lot of people that leave their countries to come to America to be able to do that.
Yeah.
To have that freedom,
And
within
because
the
it's
Constitution,
of the Constitution, the other pastor who actually went to legal war with the governor, and a lot of drama came from that. He ended up winning all of his cases because their churches ended up winning all their cases against the Governor Newsom, because once again the Constitution, because the Constitution was on the church's side.
Yeah, they didn't lose.
Yeah,
they didn't lose a single legal dispute from that stuff. I'm waiting for Zach to finish that.
What's the just because Caleb initially brought it up, So we opened up 5 months. We got scrutinized for it,
Yeah,
openly
yeah.
rebuked for it. And then 5 months later, they opened up when the world was still locked down.
Correct.
What do we do about that? Like, what do you?
What was their biblical reasoning for it when
Yeah,
they were
yeah,
first
yeah.
biblically against what we were doing?
Yeah.
I think that they finally came to terms with what we had come to terms
Right.
with months before. It was the government. The government has overstepped the Constitution. And so then because that's the thing, everybody was docile for the first couple months. And then once they realized, I don't think this is going to last a couple months.
They realized
you know?
they realized it was blown way out of proportion, and there was more of a political agenda to the degree of the pandemic. They realized that, number one, and number two, their people were demanding it. So and once they opened, they were literally having record attendance, breaking record attendance, because their congregation was demanding it. And I think they started opening outside to be as safe as possible, and it blew up, and then they became
because they were getting all the media stuff. So
that's true.
anyone who was in vicinity who wanted to attend that church would, that if their church hadn't opened yet. And
But
so
here's the thing:
they
the
really grew
churches.
from it.
Here's one thing I heard recently, that most of the churches who resisted in some way those lockdowns, virtually every church is booming, and we are a
Healthier than
testament
ever.
to
We
that
are free,
as well.
but it is cost for the free.
Yep.
Yeah, but
exactly.
so it's like God is rewarding those churches right now in the present, with the ones that did resist. They're all booming attendance wise, and I can attest to our church is an example of that. I know this other church is an example of that, and many others I can think of offhand. The ones who resisted, those mandates, they're booming attendance wise.
Those that list, because I know a lot of pastors, I know a lot of churches. The churches that listened to the government and opened when they allowed them to open, which is only about a year ago, is when they allowed the size of space to really grow and really meet. They're all actually having to close down and sell their churches.
Which ones again?
Churches that waited for the government to tell them, hey, you can open now.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
They can't. They can't, because the
Makes
people
sense.
the people that were in those churches were sick of waiting for them to open.
Yeah.
And so they
found
went and found another church.
Yeah.
And so it's an unfortunate, growth principle, but it's a reality of what's happened. Is there were so many people that were like, I'm tired of waiting. I waited a year. Now we're 2 years in it. Now we're 3 years into it. And so I know many churches, you can go right now online on LoopNet, and there are hundreds of churches for sale right now. I'll tell you this, because we were looking looking to buy a church for Pomona before COVID lockdown. Before COVID lockdown, there was only one church for sale in all of California. One. Like, the churches were they maybe weren't healthy, but they were fine enough that they could cover their bills and pay electricity. And, even if you have 15 members in a church, if there's no debt on the property, you could cover all the utilities and all that stuff like that. But what happened is one church for sale in all of California, 2019. Coming now, you can go on there on LoopNet now. They're literally in California alone, over 150 churches for sale, where they're not. But there's the thing, like, it's not that people aren't in church anymore. They're just not in those churches anymore, or they've gotten older and they just aren't able to sustain. And so maybe they're even downsizing. Some very rarely are trying to grow out of it, go to one that's potentially bigger. There's a few cases of that too, but by and large, we listened to the government. We stayed closed as long as they told us to, and our church took the hit for it because all of our members went to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And man, it's tough. It's heartbreaking that circumstance way. And they're like, I trusted those leaders. It's like I trusted those leaders to make that call, and now our church is paying the price for that. We can't.
And the only reason they lifted is because you had enough people resisting it. Like, I'm convinced that if enough people didn't resist it, we'd all still be in masks, and we'd all still be in our homes and 3 feet apart,
For
and
sure.
freaking
Right.
dead
Oh, Zach, you have a question.
of boredom,
Ask the
locked
question,
in a
Zach.
cubicle.
I have a question.
Hit me. I still go to places that will have like a mask sign outside, and I'll think, do I have like, is this old or is this new?
Right.
Like, I'll think, do I have to still wear this?
Or
right
like
now?
when you had to wear them in line on the plane, but then when you sat
Yeah.
down, you could take it off. It's
Yeah.
Like, or a restaurant.
Well,
it just never added up.
yeah.
I don't know.
What's crazy is coming out of it though. If I so much as a cold, I'll be like, I'll wear a mask today. I'll be polite for other people.
Oh,
Why
Why do some
okay.
people choose to not believe the Creator? Because we know that everything has a design and everything don't be.
Man, why do we
Yeah.
think some people don't choose?
That's a
to-
good question, Zach.
I'm gonna let Caleb
Choose
answer
to
that.
believe.
Well, because they love their sin. I think that's the main reason. Because I do think it's so obvious that God exists, and I think it's even obvious that Jesus Christ exists for 2,000 years of church history and all the evidence that Jesus Christ lived and died for the sins of the world and produced a church through the Holy Spirit and transformed the world. I think it's self-evident, but I think people love their sin, and I think that they're not willing to repent of their sins, and so they justify their sin by the Bible says the fool has said in his heart there is no God. So every atheist, according to the Bible, is a fool, is a literal fool, because it's so plain to them. It is so plain to them that God exists. There's a great book. It's a great slogan. God doesn't believe in atheists. So it kind of turns the phrase "atheists don't believe in God" to "God doesn't believe in atheists." Yeah, so I think that's such a great phrase. Yeah, I try to use that as much as possible. God doesn't believe in atheists because they don't exist. The true atheist doesn't exist. You know, God has written eternity on every man's heart.
Yeah.
And even like I just saw this clip recently going around, Jay-Z like talking about how Luciferian. I don't know if this was legit or if it was made up or whatever, but it was saying that Jay-Z was like trying to convince people to follow Lucifer because Luciferianism is the true way and we need to worship Satan and because God is
Like Jay-Z was saying that, or someone was saying that on his behalf.
somebody said that Jay-Z said that.
Okay.
But you know, there are ties. There have been ties to the
Just wanted
Illuminati.
to make sure.
I
I
know.
know.
Yeah, so I
know
want to
he's done
say
hand stuff,
I want to
and I
say
know Beyonce.
allegedly.
just
I want to
wanna-
say
okay, there we go.
allegedly.
I wanted to clarify
So
that.
Yeah.
allegedly,
Yeah.
Jay-Z and Beyonce are Lucifer or Freemasons,
Illuminati,
Freemasons.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they're like the top. You know, we've heard this though.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's
I've
kind of
heard
common
I've
in
heard the
Christian
youth
circles.
sermons over the years.
Yeah. But here's the here's
Easy money,
Here's
baby.
the crazy thing.
Call
though.
every musician
No,
an
this
Illuminati.
this is what I don't understand about that, Lo. If he really said that, like, you need to follow Lucifer because God is trying to keep you from reaching your full potential and Satan will allow you to live your fullest life. Like people who, and Satanists and like people who like truly, like probably a lot of the elites who like have these like rituals because they know that the devil exists and they literally worship him and they literally sacrifice children to him at blood sacrifices and do all of this crazy eyes wide shut Kubrick type craziness. Is like these people really believe Satan exists and they believe in the supernatural, right? It's like, bro, like how are you going to pick the losing team?
Yeah.
Like how are you gonna how do you got to become
Yeah.
so depraved in mind, like so debased, where it's like the supernatural exists, but you're like, okay, I'm gonna choose the losing guy. I'm gonna choose the losing team. Like you're not
Yeah.
gonna choose God when you believe in a supernatural. Like I
just
don't
don't- I
understand the
wonder-
mindset
yeah,
of these Luciferians and these Satan worshipers. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get how you can like worship Satan and believe in the supernatural. And bro, like,
Yeah.
do you really think he's gonna win?
Yeah.
Like, you really think Satan's gonna
Right,
win
yeah.
at the
Devil
end of the
is
day?
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Zach said, say it again, Zach.
Say it again.
Devil is done.
Yeah.
Devil
Yeah.
is dumb.
Dumb.
Devil.
But I mean, that's what I think is confusing is the sense that a lot of these, and we've heard it from people who end up being saved, and they talk about what the music industry is like and what the movie industry can be like. That I don't think every musician is that. I don't think every movie is that. But
Right.
the industry as a whole, I think, has a lot of that darkness behind it.
Oh, yeah,
is
I agree
is
with
the
you.
reality of an acknowledgement of okay. because we see this when Satan tries to tempt Jesus, he says, I'll give you a kingdom, I'll give you all this land. So obviously we know
Yes.
Satan has a certain level of power on earth and stuff like that. But if I was like, say I was one of those
Yes.
musicians, maybe it's an immediate thing that they're looking for, an immediate gratification, but it's the sense to say like, okay, well, all the Satanists of the past have died at one point. So like one thing you can't give me, Satan, is like you can't make me live forever. If you have power on earth, well, that's clearly and I've heard Satanists before, well, like Satan has power on earth. He can give you power. He can give you prestige. He can give you money.
Yeah.
He can give you influence. He can give you fame. But no one has ever said that Satan has more sovereignty over God. I've never heard a Satanist or someone in that type of level of spell try to act like Satan is more supreme than God. They acknowledge that God is more supreme.
Mm-hmm.
They acknowledge that he has his own realm. He has his own spiritual realm. And so by me, I'm thinking, okay, if he can give me everything here on earth, but yet there's a clear dividing line, I'm not living forever. So
Yeah.
at some point I'm dying.
Yeah.
I'm dying. And I got to stand up, not to Satan.
What about afterlife?
Exactly, Zach. Whatever afterlife. What happens when I stand up to
Eternity.
God in eternity and you don't got your records no more? You don't got the money with you anymore. It must be such an immediate gratified self. I mean, I can think of my own sinful decisions I make that immediately gratify me and I'm immediately remorseful in that moment. And obviously that's me as a believer. But if I'm an unbeliever, it would have to be in such a place that they salivate so much over the gratification of sin and self that the idea of even setting their minds on eternity or even doing the math to say, well, if Satan give me everything here, but one day I have to stand before an all-powerful God and one who's actually where Satan's in rebellion against him, what makes me think that he's going to welcome me and acknowledge me in the way that Satan has when I've rejected him on earth? That to me is the fact that none of them do that math. Kind of like what you're saying. But they don't even take it as far as going, well, one day I have to stand before him. Like, because all of
Yeah,
them,
right. They don't believe
none
that.
of them reject, like, there are weird and childish Satanists. They're like the one where they claim to be atheists. Like, they're just using Satan as like a scapegoat of like their own pain from their youth.
They don't believe in the supernatural. They're just they believe in the mantra, "Do as thou wilt."
Exactly.
And
then there are the Satanists that practice the spiritual side of
that
things.
actually have supernatural experience. That's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Like the ones that have like supernatural experiences, which I think the tippy top, like they
do.
experience. Like
Yeah.
in order to get access into the realms, the authority, the positions that they get as billionaires and multi-gazillionaires. I think not every billionaire is I'm not saying that, but
Right.
I think there is like this exposure to the Prince of Darkness, and there are supernatural experiences, and that's just what I'm saying because like from this quote from allegedly from Jay-Z, he's like being like this evangelist for Luciferianism. He's just like, come to Lucifer, he is the true way, and it's like how can you like choose the losing team? Like how are you that debased in mind that you think the devil's gonna win?
Yeah.
Like I understand you're gonna get some mansions, you're gonna get the best cars, you're gonna get vacations, you're gonna get the best access to
Material.
women or men or whatever, but it's like really like it goes back to Jesus. What is the profit of the world, gain the whole world, lose soul? But I just can't understand. Like it's just hard because I can't understand like how you can get to that level of hard-heartedness to where you're literally following the devil.
You're embracing embracing it. It'd have to be, that's what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
your heart is hearted and you love the world that much that you'll like, whatever he is on the unseen. If he's there on the other side, I'll deal with it on the other side. It's like, no, you're not. You're not going to enjoy that on the other side. I'll tell you that much. And we've seen rappers who have come to Christ, and we've seen musicians, Hollywood people that come to
Actors.
Christ.
Do we have that
like,
clip of Jerry Springer? I sent you a clip 2 weeks ago. Have you seen this clip of Jerry Springer right before he died? This statement that he made that's really
Is it the thing about the will?
No. It's
Okay.
really creepy. I sent it to you, but it's basically, it's him saying that I'm going to hell, and so I want you all just to know that if you live like me or do what I do, don't listen to anything I've ever said because I'm going to hell, and I will lead you to hell. That he literally said that.
Yeah, we got
This
that
is
clip.
this
You got
isn't
that?
like
Oh,
I mean, what's
James
dangerous now? This isn't like an AI thing, right?
No.
This
Right,
is like,
I know.
it's like
Now
you
you
never
have
know
to
now.
deal with AI.
I
That's
think
what's so tough nowadays.
people
You don't know what's
interpret it as
real
a
and
joke,
what's
but
not.
I don't think it was a joke though. I think he was dead serious.
So it comes off as a joke.
well, people are laughing, yeah, but people are laughing.
You
but
have it, gang?
I think he was dead serious.
And I'd like to take this opportunity to frankly apologize for everything I've ever done in television. I am so sorry. I have ruined the culture. And, I just hope hell isn't that hot. I burn real easy. I'm very light complected. I hope you all pray for me because if I get to heaven, you're all going. Think about it. You're all going. So take care of yourself and each other, and may you never, ever be on my show.
Wait, that was real?
Yeah, no, that he's dead serious, and I think that's like that false repentance sort of
Yeah.
a thing where it's like where you're going. He believes
Yeah.
he knows the supernatural. He believes in the supernatural. That's probably one of the individuals who sold his soul to the devil to get where he got in
was,
life.
yeah.
Probably, I'm guessing, and. So
Well, if you
now,
said that it meant that. I mean,
well, that's
you know.
an element of the Illuminati and Freemasonry is at the end of your life or right before sometimes they'll kill you. They'll tell you it's time for you
Yeah.
to be taken out or whatever, and you have to confess your sins to the world. That's like one of the conditions of the Illuminati, where you have to show the world what they did through you, like what you did. You have to. It's like a shame ritual. It's
called cosmic retribution, where you have.
yeah,
to,
that's it. Yeah.
Jermaine knows all
What?
the weird
Yeah.
Jermaine?
Illuminati
Jermaine's got
saints.
this.
Jermaine's
No,
been
he's on it. Go ahead.
Jermaine's been on
He's
Reddit and
he's-
4chan
No,
forever
that's
for this
He's
moment.
repented. He's
Well,
come
there
to
are a
the
lot of
Lord.
people that find this
No,
interesting.
Jermaine should be living
You
on
knew
those
the
Reddits,
whole
man.
vocabulary.
Yeah.
for
Jermaine
that.
be living on
It's like
Reddit,
a
man.
humiliation ritual or cosmic
right.
retribution, but it's a real thing. I think it's a real thing in
Yeah,
the
it's like
Illuminati and stuff.
rappers wearing dresses. And all that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
yeah.
they say. I don't know, but they say it's like a
But I
humiliation
find that interesting
ritual
because
and
it's
stuff
like
that. Yeah.
if he truly he believes in the supernatural, obviously from his statement, because I don't think he's joking, but it's like that's not true repentance. Like you would think, if he was able to truly repent of his sins and come to Christ, you would think he would have used that, and it would have sounded like,
Sincere.
I have sinned against God, my Maker. I believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. But this is to me, this is an example of like an Esau sort of repentance, or a Judas sort of repentance, where it's like I feel sorry for what I did, but I don't feel sorry for
Where I'm
sinning
going,
against
yeah.
God. I still choose not to follow God, not to humble myself before God and follow
Yeah.
Christ. It's a sort of like superficial, Hebrews talks about this, right? The repentance that leads to death. I think that's an example of what we're seeing here, a repentance that leads to death. It's fascinating.
crazy.
It's very fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the whole concept of cosmic retribution is that you're not actually allowed to be quiet about what you do, and you need to let people know that who you're associated
so
with.
that so
that's
that
why
they
do all the
knowingly so that they
signs.
still knowingly it's not it's like so
Yeah.
you didn't trick them, you knowingly put it's like
Yeah.
it's like the music industry and what it does. That's why they're putting that's why they put Satan horns on stuff. That's
Exactly.
why a singer will come out and she'll look like she's dressed as Satan or whatever, because they're basically saying, for you to listen to my stuff and you watch my stuff, you're choosing out of your own volition, because I've made it clear to you that I'm not tricking you, I'm not coercing you, I've not made you think that I represent God in any way. I have
'cause
made
it's
it clear
flipped,
to
yeah.
you that it's debaucherous, it's this, it's that, it's satanic, it's that, and you're still choosing to watch it, you're still choosing to listen to it. So it
wow.
makes them in the the ethos, the clear, of all the stuff they're calling it, right? Which we know is funny, but karma and all these other things like
Yeah.
that come around. It's like, okay, if I'm going to trick them, then that means I could be tricked, in course. But if I'm honest to them and say, hey, my music is satanic. Look, I'm wearing a goat horn and putting on a satanic thing in the
Double show,
thing,
yeah.
whatever, you know, it's like you're the naive one who's
Yeah, you're
still
the
listening to,
idiot,
you know,
yeah.
yeah.
It kind of takes some of the blame off of them in a sense. I mean, it's weird. I know that, but
They have a lot of
there are
laws
rules.
and
there are a
rules.
lot of laws.
Yeah, there are a lot of rules in all that.
Well, Satan
you know?
is a legalist, so
Yeah.
it makes sense, right? Satan is a legalist, so the Pharisees are the greatest picture of Satan, the Pharisaical legalists, and I'm sure in these Luciferian cults and these Satan worshiping cults, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of laws.
Tons.
If they're
Yeah.
a lot of family members, like a lot of times they have to offer family members in order to gain these positions. They have to sacrifice a father, a mother, a brother, you know.
Yeah.
Close, but it has to be somebody close to them. It has to be-
Virgin, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Stuff that Satan is, you know, really keen to. He likes taking life. He likes abusing life. He likes all those things like that. So, yeah, there are always things. I mean, and if you study the old pagan religions, they all root back to that stuff too. A high prioritization of sexuality, virginity. You know, all the Roman gods, all of the Persian gods. They all represent. It's cyclical, you know, and I'm not one that goes into all of that like demonology stuff like that, but that tends to be pretty much what it is. Pretty cyclical stuff. It's a new age, so we're doing it. We see it done in like with music and movies and entertainment, but that's what it was back then. Their own versions of entertainment and celebrityism that you would see those expressions of Satanism interact. But they wouldn't necessarily always call it that. You know, they would have some other type of god associated to it, which we all know ties back to Satan. You know, in the end game. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know that. I didn't know he said anything like that. That didn't hit my
real
TikTok
cryptic.
algorithm.
I know. Well, I wonder.
I just
what your
wonder the
FYP
context because clearly he's on the radio, so he was obviously talking about other stuff. So I just wonder, like you said, like some of them are laughing on the thing. So, like in his humorous.
I feel like
way
he was
about
serious
it, you know?
though. Like I feel
But
like.
staying
he was
on the
serious.
same point, then, since we're here with the last few thoughts, then is Target apparently hired. A guy who is an outward Satanist. Like you could go to his Instagram.
He's transitioned well.
I know, right? We didn't plan that.
Wow.
Good job, Zach.
He wears Satanist T-shirts. He has a shirt on his Instagram
boy, Target.
of a Satan statement, and then he literally redid the design for Target, and now it says like queer and proud and stuff like that. And then they're like you go to our Target across the street, and they have whole LGBTQ sections, and they come in and like now they're making it a entry level priority to almost all Targets.
Crazy, man.
And
Have you been in one
the
yet?
children's
Have you been
section
and saw it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's as
Yeah.
bad as it.
I have. Not this newest one, but the iteration of last year, because they're getting ready for June, Gay Pride Month. So this is May right now. So, but now they're just trying. Now they're making it all year round. But they're literally, there's a couple things they're doing. They're cornering stores entry levels to be this. So every child, like my son's favorite thing to do is Target. Right now, I'll tell you this, because I know we always talk about Disneyland, all this stuff. For me, Target has reached my conviction line where we're not going to
Shopping
Target.
at
Me and my
Target.
family. Yeah,
What's the alternative?
The alternative for right now is Amazon.
Not Walmart, right?
It's not Amazon.
What's the
I mean,
alternative?
I'm just not really near a Walmart, so Walmart's still just that inconvenient. But I mean, I get 90% of my
Amazon.
stuff online now, like Costco, Sam's Club. To me, it's not just the fact that they're doing it. Here's where I'll make that clear. It's not that they're doing it because they're a company and they could do whatever they want. It's the fact that they are placing it immediately in the entrances and in every area they go. They're doing it on purpose, and then they're making everything childish themed. So it's very keen to children.
Right,
And that's
I saw
something
that.
at the age that my son is at 5, he's gravitated to that kind of stuff right away. And I have to have more conversations with my son than I ever imagined I would have to with a 5-year-old, explaining to him what these things are and how mommy and daddy and our Christian faith are not in approval of those YouTube videos, not in approval of that clothing, not in approval of that.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would have to imagine I'd have to have that many circular conversations with my son at 5 about why we're not going to walk into Target, because every entrance has an entire LGBTQ display that is literally created to appeal to him. You know,
yeah.
they got like unicorns on them,
the clothing,
rainbow.
yeah.
And it's not just rainbow stuff. Like it literally looks child themed. It looks
It
childish.
does,
Very
yeah.
sneaky.
So
Very sneaky.
yeah. So Gabe, if you have it, play the girl's video, kind of explaining it. But she shares a little bit about the designer's Instagram, and then if you guys have it.
Why would Target hire a Satanist to design their new Pride collection that has now gone viral? This is the designer. This is not a boy. This is a biological woman who has transitioned, who is a Satanist, who Target actually paid and sought out to design the collection. A part of the collection is this t-shirt that says Cure Transphobia, Not Trans People, this fanny pack that says We Belong Everywhere, and this bag along with a couple of other items. But what really disturbs me is the fact that Target hired someone who is a Satanist. This is spiritual warfare. This is good versus evil happening in our country. And this t-shirt right here says it all. Satan respects pronouns. Now, if you look at a lot of the other artwork on the page, it's very sparkly, pastel, cute. Very much if a little kid saw this, they would want it. So if you think they're not targeting your kids, make sure that you check again, because they definitely are. And honestly, this just makes me so upset. It makes me sick to my stomach knowing that there are Satanists infiltrating culture. And yet they have the audacity to say that Christians are shoving the Bible down everyone's throats.
So
It's crazy.
it's Target. Gosh.
Yeah, it's so
And
in
it
your
was,
face.
you know, and I for the longest was just like, okay, they're, you know, putting a section, their business, they could do whatever they want. I remember when they decided to say that they were going to make all their bathrooms trans, and all the Christians stopped shopping that week, and they lost $2 billion. You know, they're just continually, at least in stock evaluation, but at least now it's at a point where just like Bud Light and stuff like that, it's like enough people are going into leadership. That's what's happened at Disney too. Like enough people are getting in leadership that have enough power that are just going, hey, regardless of what this does for the business, for money, because that doesn't make them more money. They know that. They're not dumb to think that the LGBTQ community is big enough that it's going to get them this substantial. They know that.
And I have to believe Bud Light knew too. Like they knew that they would take
For
a hit.
sure.
It's more the propaganda and the agenda is more important than money. Especially when you're a monopoly like Target, or you're such
I
a
heard that they
gargantuan.
tried to go to a school.
They tried to go to a school.
Target tried going to a school? Bud Light?
Or probably
The Satanists? Oh, yeah.
Like clubs and stuff.
Yeah, they've been trying to open up school
they're trying to get
clubs and
clubs
stuff.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing all that stuff.
conferences, Satanist conferences.
Yeah, their little conference that they did. Apparently, I think Sean Foynt went to that. It's like a Christian,
Maybe they are just that dumb though.
evangelist,
Like
but-
maybe they are just that foolish. Because I'm thinking about like even like anyway. No, I don't want to get into this. Like Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy messing up Star Wars.
Right.
But anyways, but I won't get into that. But like you know, they just closed the Galactic Star Cruiser because nobody cares about the new Disney Star Wars because Kathleen Kennedy screwed it up. Anyway, so moving on. So as far as
I know, we need a
as
Star
far as
Wars
Targo,
fan.
as far as Targo. No, I actually heard that they're getting so much backlash that they're getting so much heat, similar to the Bud Light situation, that they're having to take this now it's like in your face, and they're now like trying to hide it. They're like trying to hide the section now because they're getting enough. Like there was one parent that had a great idea actually, and I don't know if this is Christian, if this is very Christian, but it's like load up your cart with a bunch of stuff and like take it to the front and just leave it there and leave. Like just stick a bunch of stuff, put it in your cart.
Put it back every
Because
day.
they gotta put it back. Like just
So it's all empty.
Yeah, I would do something like that. I would ask for forgiveness.
That's a troll thing.
Yeah, I was
Caleb
gonna
would
say.
do. It's tough because I know
Gosh,
we've
that
talked
is
about
very
it before.
tough.
Like, okay, with Disney, you let
Where do
your,
you draw the line?
you let your pocketbook talk. But here for me, like there, we don't go to Disneyland or Disney things during those, kind of gay pride days, because there are days that they like flush the store with everything. They do some stuff with the entrances. Staff will
do they
wear some
how do you
stuff.
know when that's happening?
It's in June. It's normally,
Oh.
at least from what I think it is. It's in
okay,
June,
right.
and they'll
Pride
do all
month.
that stuff. And so those are the times. But it is getting to a place where what I'm seeing with Target is obviously they're putting it right at the entrance, so it's unavoidable. It's moving to a place pretty all year round, because I was there like 2 months ago and they had a Pride section, and it's like in one of the main area walkways, and then it's geared towards it's appealing towards my kids,
Yeah.
because that's a further for further down, but why that community wants everything to look like for children. It's not even pedophilic. It's a lot of these mentalities of what a person is struggling with sexuality, it derives from your childhood. And so a lot of them are reliving childhood is what they're doing. They didn't get a childhood. They experienced some type of
Trauma.
molestation, some type of pedophilia, really disgusting stuff.
You're going there.
But they did. I mean, you look,
that's
you know,
not often
like,
talked about enough, I don't think.
And the average person, and the statistics are out there, an average person who's struggling or dealing with whatever you want to call it, LGBTQ, 80 to 90% of them are dealing with something that has happened to them when they were a child, some type of abuse, which I've always been keen to having high disciplinary actions towards any adult that does anything towards children. And so a lot of...
Well, can I say something along the line? I don't know if this is true, but it was kind of fascinating when I first heard this, because often, and I don't want to be offensive, so I'm saying I'm not making fun, but like how male homosexuals all kind of, like, not all of them, but typically there's the stereotype. They all kind of talk the same. They're very flamboyant. Oh, yay!
A femininity.
And we often, that's what we think of it. We think of them like acting like women, being gay men. But I heard once that they're not actually acting like women. They're acting like little boys, because when that abuse happened, it arrested them in that developmental stage. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh snaps, that's so true, because gay men sound more like my 7-year-old son than they do like a woman. Because women aren't like, hey guys, it's amazing, but my 7-year-old boy is like that. He's like, hey guys, let's go. What are you doing? So I thought that was an interesting, maybe psychological sort of a thing. I could be completely wrong, and I don't say that to like be offensive. I don't want to be offensive, but like when
you did the voice, it was
okay. Well, I mean, and there are some gay men that are macho gay men.
Yeah, there are different variations.
Freddie Mercury, very macho, but I just thought that was interesting.
Yes. I mean,
Michael Jackson had a similar sort of a thing. I don't know if his stuff was
childhood
as a kid
and everything like that.
He wanted to.
Yeah.
Be a child.
Yeah. And I mean, I've read, the famous psychologist who does psychology of homosexuality, who's not a Christian by any means, but they're the one who wrote the book on it, talks about the most of the derivatives of what a person is dealing with today that identifies in that spectrum. And a lot of it comes from childhood. So you look at the stuff that gets produced and is put out there, it's geared towards giving or reliving a childhood and trying to spin, in their sense, a more positive light on it. And that's where I sympathize with their trying to find healing the best way that they can. I believe healing is found in Christ. That's me, and so that's why when I tell someone we don't embrace any of our sexual urges, because we do not find healing in sexual urges, even as a man. In a heterosexual sense, that's not my pursuit. And so when you see what they're doing in Target or Disneyland and all that stuff like that, I say, it's not for me and my family, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to relive their childhood. They're trying to pose a more positive light to their childhood. They're thinking in the best way that they can. How do you have someone who has a childhood like me become healthy one day? I know it to only be anyone who deals with anything. The only way to find it is through the Lord. But for them, it is in a pursuit of. And so whether that person claims to be a Satanist and they're making these things and all that kind of stuff like that, for me, I don't think it's something that should be popularly put in a target where many of us use on a daily basis. And by no means would you guys don't even give us a cross thing on Easter, when Easter is our holiday. Like, it's been ours before the Easter bunny, and y'all still won't give it. You guys won't give us Christmas at Target. You won't put a Jesus. You won't, and that's our holiday. It's got Jesus in the name. It's got Christmas. You won't even even give us that at Target. Like, so don't tell us that you're a respecter of peoples or any way when most of America celebrates Christmas. Most of America puts a nativity scene somewhere around their home, or at least they're aware that has anything to do with it. And you do everything in your power not to make the staff say happy holidays or just make everything about a Christmas tree or whatever else. So don't tell us that you're being empathetic towards people or that you're, no, you have people in leadership who can make those decisions, who clearly identify as that community, and they're trying to propagate their own belief system. Let's just be real. That's what it is. And am I in agreement with it? No.
Yeah.
Is it something that's conversations I want to have with my son? Absolutely not. Or my daughter, for that matter. If I had a daughter and she sees a unicorn on a fanny pack.
This is the
Yeah.
big point of resistance from the East and the West that I often like to point out, which is, China, Russia, India. Recently, India. Zach. Recently, go
Zach be on the news.
No, I'm just kidding. No. You may want to edit that, Corey. But it's there's another clip that I sent these guys of India. Now, India is a population of over 1 billion, right?
Yeah, it's huge.
They're going against a transgender propaganda thing. Their entire country is resisting and going against it.
I saw
Did
this.
you see that?
Yeah, so Starbucks,
yes.
Yes,
Starbucks. The whole nation is united
these-
against this.
Starbucks did
We have that clip, too.
Starbucks did an ad, or we could play it and then we could close with this because it's on the topic with Target and everything. All in all, I won't be walking into Target anymore right now until we, let the people's voice be heard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, don't
keep your money.
All
Amazon,
of our
Costco,
listeners,
Sam's
all of our
Club.
listeners, this is time to rise up. Like, this is enough. That's enough of this stuff. Do something.
That's where and again,
Yes.
we've always said personal conviction. My personal conviction is hit with this. I'm not, it's draw the line for me. You know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying, Phil?
No, we
It's for me personally, right?
We literally had a birthday party for the kids, and everyone got Target cards, and I told
Moron.
Ames, I'm like, well, we're going to put these away for at least a couple
We gonna
months.
stock
we got
them
about,
up.
We got about $300 in Target cards.
You already
Yeah.
gave them
We
your money.
won't
Might
be
as well.
spending-
Yeah, you might as
No, they
well.
were gifts. I mean, they were gifts.
Oh, yeah.
Stock them up.
I'm not walking in there. So.
Yeah, it's
Gosh.
unfortunate.
So I feel like, this gives an opportunity for people that are entrepreneurs, Christians, that there may be, like
Start
a Hobby
your own
Lobby,
Target.
like
Yeah.
or
Yeah, go-
Chick-fil-A and
Hobby
all these
Lobby,
other
Chick-fil-A.
places. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what could we call a Christian Target? We could call it like
Bullseye.
Bullseye, Solomon's Temple.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Solomon's Temple today.
I'm gonna go to David's Grotto.
Oh, God.
Think of something super
start
cheesy.
thinking of some ideas.
Yeah. Like Hebrews coffee every
It's a real place.
every church
Wait,
coffee shop,
It's a
Hebrews
real
coffee.
place. Yeah, I know,
No,
right?
it's not.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Well, I don't really,
a lot
I
of
don't drink
churches call
coffee,
their
so I don't
coffee
know.
like Hebrews.
Hebrews.
Oh gosh.
Okay, I wouldn't know, but
Zach,
there could
start
be
a new
something clever.
Target, Zach. All right, end it with the Starbucks one.
Millions of people in India are canceling Starbucks after it released an ad telling the story of a transgender woman named Arpit who became Arpita, reconnecting with the family after a long period of separation. People are mad as it promotes gender being fluid and are saying don't bring that woke Western propaganda to India. Many are also asking how come Muslim names are never used. It's a good question. Hashtag boycott Starbucks is now trending. But what do you think?
Nice. Go India.
So, yeah, I mean they ask questions like, that's strange that they wouldn't feature like. There's a lot of
Muslim
Muslims in India that somehow they leave them out. Maybe it's conscious, maybe it's not. But what you're seeing is
Well, a
Western
lot of the
countries.
propaganda is created by a certain. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I mean the Western principles they're not working in other countries, and then they're getting so proud
Bite your tongue, kid.
that they
Bite your
think they're like I think I can get away with it in America, and a lot of times like now it's not because people are just putting their foot down now and not really a fan
Yeah,
of
and
some of
people
these
need to
expressions.
realize, people need to realize like I've said this before, and it's like the majority of the world's population does not stand for this type of stuff. You have all of Africa is against this propaganda. All of the Middle East is against, apart from Israel, is against this sort of, or Tel Aviv more specifically, and Israel too, is against this sort of propaganda. China, Russia, India. So you're probably looking at Hungary. You're probably looking at right as of now. What I don't know, 40% at most. That's a generous number. It's probably more like 30%. That's actually proponents of this sort of propaganda, this sort of ideology. That's going against human nature. Yeah, it's probably less. Like that's generous. Like so it's like even if you think so. Yeah, so like China's 1.5 billion, India's 1 billion, and so I would say, okay, so this is
Majority
a minority.
Of Africa is either
and
Christian or Muslim.
what I'm saying is, us Americans, especially Christians, sometimes we could just get pessimistic and think that this is like everybody in the world is doing this. It's like, no, the majority of the world is not for this. I mean, look at what Uganda is doing with their laws. Look at what Kenya is doing with their. Look at what Africa as a whole is doing to resist this sort of. Look at what they said to Obama when Obama tried to bring in the LGBTQ agenda into Kenya. The Kenyan president was like. Don't bring this mess. We don't want this. Like you do you, we do us. Like don't try to infect us with this ideology. And I think a lot of I just think it's important to realize, because I don't know, for me, it gives me more of an optimistic view of the world. Because in America we can think, oh, this is just dominating every corner of the world. Every corner of the world is tranny.
Every Starbucks, every Disneyland, every Target. It's very, it's easy to be like, oh gosh.
And as Christians, we love these people, but it's becoming a religion at this point. It's becoming propaganda. They're shoving it down our throats.
Yes.
The same complaints that these people have against Christianity being shoving religion down their throats, they're doing the exact same thing with this agenda. And that's really the issue at hand. Don't try to infect my kids with this propaganda that from a Christian viewpoint is anti-natural law.
You see the new Transformers cartoon episode that just came out?
No, what is it?
No.
This is what, you haven't seen it? One of the newest episodes of Transformers, it's like the kids' cartoon version, and Optimus Prime calls calls one of the robots him, and then the robot tells the little girl in the show, I don't like when Optimus Prime calls me that because I don't identify as a him. The robot, robot that's neither, neither anything. It has no facilities in that area. So then the little girl goes, paraphrasing the clip, Optimus Prime, gosh, that's not what
reminds
they like.
It reminds me of Kathleen Kennedy's Han Solo's Lando, who fell in love with a robot. What do they call that? They have a term for it.
I don't know what it is.
Isn't there a movie like that?
It's not bestiality.
Then where do you draw the line? Because there's been that video, like now there's people trans-able where it's like, no, I was not born blind, but I just literally and it just
identify
goes,
as being blind. So Optimus
Mm.
Prime goes, I'm sorry, they.
Well, you have it with Muppet Babies is ridiculous. Arthur is.
So you can shop at Target, watch cartoons. It's just, I feel like we're getting pigeonholed.
Well, we have Mario. Okay, so we do have some. There are some which
I heard
which
the newest Guardians of the Galaxy is like super. I'm not know for sure. I haven't seen it.
I've
but
seen it.
Super
It
pro
wasn't-
life or
Guardians of the Galaxy. I watched it.
Oh, is
the
it?
new one?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I
There
mean,
wasn't any like.
supposed to have pretty Christian fundamentals. Gabe, you would know.
Nothing
I mean,
bad.
they didn't have any like agenda apparent in it though. For
Yeah,
sure.
it
Right.
wasn't.
I thought
Well,
someone- I
anything
saw
non
it.
anything
Thank you
non-woke
again.
nowadays is something to be grateful for. I feel like
Yeah, there
that's why I say
wasn't.
Mario.
There was only a
That's
scene
why I say Mario.
where
Top
the
Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
yeah, there was a scene where the guy like I mean I don't want to ruin it, but he
No
just like
spoilers.
turns him into you like what's his name? I remember the big tough one.
Drax.
Yes, him. And so they're trying
Spoiler
to get
alert.
in. They're trying to get into somewhere, and the girl with the antennas is like, "Hey," and he makes the security guy, who's a guy like him, have a crush on him. So they let him in. That was the
Oh.
only thing.
Oh right.
But it
That
was
is-
so-
That'd be a
that's an edgy
90s joke.
Yeah,
You'd
it
still
was
let that-
like,
you'd
yeah,
still
that's what I'm saying. It was there was
right,
nothing. It was funny. It was a great movie.
Yeah.
Go watch it.
I gotta go watch it.
Oh, did you
but
see it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was
Oh,
awesome.
okay.
We need to
We
create
need to
animation.
create an animation.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Well, here, you have no idea how expensive that is. I've looked into it, and it costs.
Adam's trying to get a contract with a guy.
Yeah. It costs minimum to do an affordable cartoon, $2,500 a minute.
No,
A minute,
That's insane.
like 1 minute
I
for
took
animation.
one
That's how hard it
coding
is.
Animation
Didn't
class.
aren't they
Yeah.
like trying to do a David thing?
They're doing a Old Testament video game. A company, Bible X, is doing a video game. But animation, there's the guy who created Danny Phantom. He made The Garden, the newest thing. I think it's on PureFlix. Great. But he's trying to work on a movie with it. But animated, his company's doing it. But from what I understand, I've looked into it, minimum, that's like an affordable one, 25. It's on average like an animated movie, like the ones, what to be like Despicable Me or anything like that, is anywhere between $5,000 to $15,000 a minute to produce per minute. So an hour and a half movie, hour and 20-minute movie, take 80 minutes times, $10,000, $15,000.
I think Daily Wire is trying
know.
to get into that vein. I
Yeah.
think. They're probably the only ones with
It's
the
crazy.
funds to do that. But.
They definitely would have the funds, but then on top of that, you have to bet that it's going to be good.
Right.
That's the hardest part. Is then it has to be good
Succeed, yeah.
because it's got to make money.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people think. Like, oh, just throw
make
it out
it
there, just
and-
do it. It's like
yeah.
no, it also has to be good.
Wow.
Let me see. Yeah, $800,000.
But I created an animation movie or the Photoshop.
You created anime. I've seen your stuff, movie in Photoshop. Yeah.
Oh wow.
It was pretty cool.
Oh, that's
Zack
cool.
is a man of many
Yeah.
talents.
I know. Yeah.
I have it. Yeah,
He's
you
an
sent it to me.
artist.
It's pretty awesome.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Chill episode. No one got in an argument. It was good. It was chill beans today.
Yeah.
Because we had Zach with us. Today.
Yes.
Yes,
Man,
Zach.
this was
Zach.
awesome, man. You killed it.
You had some great
job, bro.
points.
Good job, man.
Thanks for being with us,
Yeah.
Zach.
Yes, thank you.
We'll put his Instagram in the thing. Any girls
Yes.
or any commissions for art? Holler at
commissions?
Zach.
Girls or commissions?
Commit.
Don't mix the two.
Yeah, right.
Yes. to
All
that.
right. All right, everybody.
All right,
God
guys.
bless you.
Ciao.